The lost library of the Himalayas. Whispers in the snow. The wind cut across the ridges of the Himalayas like 1,000 knives, howling through narrow passes and echoing off peaks that seemed to pierce the heavens themselves. Snowflakes swirled like restless spirits in the air, stinging faces, seeping into clothing, and numbing even the most determined climbers. Yet still they pressed on, their breaths shallow and ragged, their boots crunching into the ancient white expanse of the mountain. Dr. Arjun Mehra paused on the incline, gripping his ice axe, his dark eyes squinting against the storm. Behind his protective goggles, he studied the shape of the cliff before them. To most, it looked like nothing more than another jagged face of rock and ice. But to Arjun, who had spent a lifetime studying maps, scrolls, and fragments of forgotten legends, this cliff was the key. "This is it," he whispered to himself, his voice almost drowned by the gale. Behind him, 5 others struggled upward, tethered to one another by a rope line. Lara Jennings, an American archaeologist with sharp features and sharper instincts, trudged nearest to him. Her blonde hair, tied back beneath her hood, had turned silver with frost. She lifted her goggles and shouted over the wind, "You sure this is the place? We've been chasing a dead monk's map for weeks. Could be nothing but ice and rock." Arjun smiled faintly, though his lips cracked in the cold. "It's not nothing. Look closer." He pointed with his axe toward an odd formation near the base of the cliff, a series of faint symbols, barely visible beneath a sheet of frost. Lara leaned down, brushing snow away with a gloved hand. Her eyes widened. The carvings weren't random cracks. They were deliberate, old, ancient. 3 interlocking circles, etched into the stone with surprising precision, and beneath them, a line of script. Not Sanskrit, not Tibetan, something older. The rest of the team caught up, collapsing against the cliffside, desperate for respite from the biting winds. Marcus Hale, a rugged mountaineer with a grizzled beard, yanked off his gloves and flexed stiff fingers. He glanced at the carving and gave a grunt. Could just be old shepherd marks. People carve nonsense all the time. Arjun shook his head. "No, these aren't nonsense. These are the same symbols described in the Dolma manuscript." At the mention of that name, Lara glanced up sharply. The Dolma manuscript was infamous in certain academic circles, a fragile Tibetan scroll said to speak of a whispering mountain, where an ancient repository of knowledge had been hidden. Most scholars dismissed it as myth. Arjun had staked his career, and now his life, on proving otherwise. The 6th member of the team, Ravi, a young Nepali guide, glanced nervously at the symbols. His face was pale beneath his wool cap. "This place," he murmured, his voice barely audible. "We should not be here. My grandmother told stories. People who come here do not return." Marcus chuckled, though uneasily. "Every mountain has its ghost stories." But Ravi shook his head violently. "Not stories. Warnings. The mountain whispers. It calls you by name. And if you answer, you vanish." The words hung in the frigid air like a curse. For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the shrieking wind and the creak of the gear. Then Arjun broke the silence. "Ghost stories or not, this is where the manuscript pointed. And this symbol," he traced the circles with his glove. "It matches the seal described in the text. We've found the entrance." Lara exhaled a cloud of mist, her skepticism fading into awe. "You really think the library could be here?" Arjun's eyes gleamed. "Not think. No." That night, they set camp near the cliff, huddled around a small stove inside a reinforced tent. The storm outside roared, battering the canvas like an angry beast, but inside they shared warmth, food, and cautious conversation. Ravi refused to eat much, muttering prayers beneath his breath. Lara leaned toward Arjun, her voice low. "Even if you're right, even if there's something here, why was it hidden? Why not share knowledge with the world?" Arjun stirred his cup of tea, staring into the steam as though it held answers. "Because some knowledge is too dangerous. Legends say this library was built to preserve truths from lost civilizations, Atlantis, Lemuria. But it was also meant to keep that knowledge from falling into the wrong hands. Marcus scoffed. Atlantis. Come on, Professor. You're starting to sound like one of those late-night radio nutjobs. Maybe, Arjun said quietly. But tell me, Marcus, how many times have myths turned out to have roots in truth? Troy was once a myth. So was Machu Picchu. So were the frozen mummies of the Andes. Myths are simply history waiting to be uncovered. The tent fell silent. The wind outside howled louder, as though in response. Later, as they slept, the whispers began. At first it was faint, like the sound of snow shifting. Then, clearer, voices drifting on the storm, weaving through the canvas walls of the tent. Ravi woke first, his eyes wide with terror. He heard it distinctly, a voice calling his name. Ravi. He bolted upright, clutching his blanket. The others stirred, confused, as the whisper grew louder, overlapping voices, speaking in languages none of them recognized, yet somehow understood. Lara sat up, shivering. Do you hear that? Marcus muttered, half asleep. Just the wind. But it wasn't the wind. The voices grew insistent, echoing through each of their minds, pulling, urging. Some spoke with tenderness, like long-lost loved ones calling them home. Others hissed commands, sharp and dangerous. Arjun felt a chill crawl down his spine. He had read about this in fragments, the Whispering Mountain. But no text could prepare him for the reality of it. Suddenly, Ravi screamed. He tore open the tent flap and stumbled into the storm, his figure swallowed by the blizzard. The others shouted after him, scrambling into boots and jackets, rushing into the night. The snow blinded them, stung their faces, but still they pushed forward, calling Ravi's name. Ravi. The wind carried his name back to them, mockingly, in dozens of voices. At last they found him near the cliff, standing rigid before the carved circles. His eyes were glazed, his lips moving soundlessly as though speaking to someone unseen. Snow swirled around him like a vortex. Ravi. Arjun shouted, grabbing his shoulder. The young man blinked, then collapsed into the snow, trembling violently. They called me, he whispered hoarsely. They know my name. The team dragged him back to the tent, shaken to their core. Ravi would not speak further that night, but his eyes remained wide and haunted, as if he had glimpsed something none of them could see. The next morning, the storm had calmed. The mountain lay eerily still, as though nothing had happened. But the team knew better. Something had awakened. Arjun stood before the carved circles once again, his heart pounding. The whispers lingered in his ears, faint but persistent, like echoes from a dream. With trembling hands, he brushed away more snow, revealing additional symbols hidden beneath the frost. A line of script shimmered faintly in the morning light, as though alive. Lara leaned in, her voice hushed. What does it say? Arjun swallowed, translating the ancient words with difficulty. Here lies the library of those before. Knowledge for the worthy, death for the unprepared. A silence followed, heavy as the mountain itself. For centuries, legends had spoken of it. Scholars had debated its existence. Myths had cloaked it in mystery. But now, here it was, real, tangible, waiting. The lost library of the Himalayas. And they were standing at its gates. The hidden library. The morning sun broke weakly through the clouds, casting long shadows across the ice-laden cliff. The storm had passed, but the air remained unnaturally still, as though the mountain itself were holding its breath. Arjun Mehra crouched before the carved circles, his gloved hand brushing along the etched stone. Frost melted under his touch, revealing grooves that shimmered faintly, almost as though light pulsed beneath the rock. Marcus crossed his arms, eyeing the markings. So, what now, Professor? You knock 3 times and the mountain door just swings open. Arjun ignored the sarcasm. He was tracing the symbols, searching for a mechanism, a pattern, something that would justify all the years of chasing legends. His mind swirled with fragments from the Dolma manuscript, a door sealed with circles, 3 paths entwined, knowledge preserved for the chosen. Behind him, Lara adjusted her goggles and crouched to examine the carvings. It looks like a lock, but not mechanical, more like symbolic. 3 circles, 3 points of entry. Could be some kind of alignment puzzle. Arjun nodded. Exactly. He withdrew a notebook from his pack, flipping through sketches of ancient manuscripts, aligning the circles with diagrams from centuries-old scrolls. At last, he pressed his gloved palm against the center of the interlocking circles. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a low rumble shook the ground beneath them. The mountain groaned as though waking from a long slumber. Snow tumbled from the cliffside, avalanches threatening to cascade down, but stopping short, as if restrained by unseen hands. The carved circles glowed faintly with blue-white light, spreading across the cliff like veins of fire beneath ice. The team stumbled back, shielding their eyes as the glow intensified. With a final roar, the stone cracked down the center, splitting open into a massive doorway. Cold, stale air burst outward, carrying with it the scent of age, dust, stone, and something else, something electric. Marcus whistled low. Well, I'll be damned. Beyond the doorway lay a dark passage, descending into the heart of the mountain. The light from their headlamps barely pierced the blackness. Ravi whispered a prayer, clutching the beads around his neck. We should not go in. This place, it is not meant for us. But Arjun was already stepping forward, his breath quickening. All my life, I knew this was real. His voice trembled with awe. The library exists. They lit lanterns and began the descent. The passage was wide enough for 5 men to walk abreast, the walls smooth and polished as though carved by hands that had known no ordinary tools. Strange symbols lined the walls, spirals, stars, and shapes that seemed to shift when stared at too long. As they moved deeper, the air grew warmer, unnaturally so, given the icy world above. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the crunch of boots and the occasional drip of water echoing far below. After what felt like hours, the passage opened into a cavern so vast it stole their breath. The library, rows upon rows of stone shelves stretched beyond sight, filled with manuscripts, scrolls, and crystalline tablets that glowed with faint inner light. Murals covered the walls, vivid, impossibly well-preserved depictions of cities sinking beneath waves, fire raining from the sky, and figures cloaked in light descending from the heavens. At the center of the cavern rose a colossal statue of a robed figure holding a sphere in its hands. Its eyes, carved from what looked like crystal, shimmered faintly, following them as they entered. Lara's voice cracked with awe. This isn't just a library. It's a history of the world before history. Arjun stepped forward, tears welling in his eyes. The civilizations they said never existed, Atlantis, Lemuria, Shambhala. It's all here. Marcus wandered toward a nearby shelf, running his fingers over an ancient manuscript bound in leather. If this is real, this could change everything. Rewrite history, or destroy it, Lara muttered, eyeing the murals of collapsing cities. A sudden sound broke the silence, soft footsteps echoing through the cavern. The team froze, headlamps flashing across the stone. From the shadows, figures emerged. Monks, clad in simple robes of faded crimson, their faces serene, they walked with a grace that seemed otherworldly. The skin was enlined, their eyes sharp, ageless. Though they appeared human, there was something eternal about them, as though time itself bent differently around their bodies. One of them stepped forward, bowing slightly. His voice was calm, deep, resonant. You should not be here. The explorers exchanged nervous glances. Marcus instinctively reached for the knife at his belt, but Arjun raised a hand, stepping forward. Who are you? Arjun asked. Are you the guardians? The monk inclined his head. We are the keepers. For millennia we have safeguarded this place, so that mankind would not destroy itself with truths it is not ready to bear. Lara's brow furrowed. Then why reveal yourselves to us? Why open the door? The monk's eyes seemed to pierce straight through her. The door does not open for those unworthy. It opened because your presence was foreseen. But be warned, knowledge is power. And power without wisdom brings ruin. Arjun's heart pounded. This was more than he had ever dreamed of. We came only to learn, to preserve, to understand what was lost. The monk studied him for a long moment before gesturing toward the shelves. Then learn. But know this, every word you read binds you to a choice. Knowledge has a cost. Some truths cannot be carried beyond these mountains. The team fanned out, unable to resist the lure of the library. Lara examined a crystalline tablet glowing faintly with strange symbols. Marcus reached for manuscripts depicting star maps unfamiliar to any known astronomy. Arjun approached the murals, tracing images of figures wielding devices that looked like weapons of impossible power. Hours passed in a blur of wonder and terror. They read of civilizations that rose and fell long before recorded history, of machines powered by crystals, of wars fought with weapons that made nuclear fire look like candlelight. One mural showed a continent sinking into the ocean, waves devouring entire cities, while above, beings of light departed the world, turning their backs on humanity. Another depicted a flood so great it consumed everything, leaving only fragments of knowledge preserved in this hidden place. Marcus leaned over Arjun's shoulder, his eyes wide. This is the real history of the world. Imagine if we took this back. Imagine the power. Arjun frowned. This isn't about power, it's about understanding who we are, where we came from. But Marcus's gaze was already darkening, hungry. The monk's voice echoed softly from behind them, as if he had read Marcus's thoughts. Beware the temptation of forbidden knowledge. The library preserves not only wisdom but also destruction. Once before, mankind misused what was given. The world drowned for it. Shall it drown again? Marcus clenched his fists, looking away. As the others continued exploring, Arjun felt the weight of the monk's gaze upon him. The keeper's eyes seemed to hold a question unspoken, a warning unheeded. For though they had found the library, they had also awakened its watchful guardians, and stirred the shadows of knowledge never meant to leave the mountain. And already, temptation was taking root in the heart of one of them. The forbidden knowledge. The deeper they explored, the more impossible the library became. It was not simply a collection of scrolls and tablets, it was a living archive. Crystals hummed softly as if resonating with hidden energy. Murals shifted when seen from the corner of the eye, showing scenes of battles, floods, and stars rearranging themselves across cosmic maps. For hours, Dr. Arjun Mehra scribbled feverishly in his journal, his hands trembling as he copied fragments from manuscripts written in languages both familiar and alien. There were passages in Sanskrit, Greek, and Sumerian, but interwoven with scripts no scholar had ever recorded. Lara traced her fingers across a slab of crystal etched with spirals. It's like they were trying to communicate with sound and light, not just words. Her voice shook with awe. We're standing inside the memory of the world. But not all were lost in reverence. Marcus prowled the shelves with restless hunger, drawn not to the philosophies or cosmic teachings, but to diagrams, blueprints of weapons, devices powered by crystals that glowed with unnatural fire. He found texts describing sun engines, capable of summoning storms, machines that could rend mountains, and vessels that sailed not seas but the skies. One manuscript in particular caught his eye. Its pages were bound in something that was not leather, not paper, something translucent, pulsing faintly like skin stretched over light. The words glimmered in a tongue no one recognized, yet Marcus felt he could understand them if he just kept staring. The monk, who had been silently watching, stepped closer. "Do not touch that." Marcus froze. His hand hovered above the manuscript. "Why not?" "That book," the monk said, his tone sharp for the first time, "holds knowledge sealed away for a reason. It is not history. It is a weapon disguised as wisdom. To open it is to open the door to ruin." Marcus sneered. "So you just keep it locked away forever. You sit on all this power, while the world above suffers. Wars, famine, disease, and you hoard the answers." The monk's expression did not change, but his eyes darkened. "Power without wisdom destroys. It always has. It always will." But Marcus's mind was already racing. He thought of governments, corporations, entire nations that would pay fortunes for even a fragment of what lay here. With this knowledge, he could be more than just another failed adventurer. He could rule. That night, while the others slept, Marcus returned to the manuscript. His fingers trembled as he broke the clasp. The air shifted instantly. The crystal torches lining the cavern flickered, casting jagged shadows. A deep hum filled the air, vibrating through stone and bone alike. Words glowed on the page, rearranging themselves into shapes Marcus could read, diagrams of machines that swallowed lightning, rituals that bent the wool of nature, invocations to beings that predated gods. And then, visions. Marcus fell to his knees as his mind filled with fire and water, with collapsing cities and screaming skies. He saw oceans swallowing continents, mountains splitting open, skies burning red. He saw figures cloaked in light, not human, watching coldly as humanity drowned. And a voice, low, terrible, echoing through his skull. The cycle must repeat. Marcus screamed. His body convulsed, the words from the manuscript searing themselves into his skin as glowing symbols. His eyes flickered with unnatural light. The others awoke to the sound of his cries. Lara rushed forward, but Arjun grabbed her arm, stopping her. Marcus rose slowly to his feet, the book still in his hands. His face was twisted, eyes glowing faintly, veins pulsing with light. "I see it now," he rasped. "The world above is blind. We are children, stumbling in the dark, when we could be gods. This is what they feared. This is what they kept from us." The monk stepped forward, his expression grim. "You have doomed yourself, and perhaps more." Marcus laughed, though his voice cracked unnaturally. "No, I've freed myself." But as he spoke, the cavern trembled. Dust rained from the ceiling. The murals along the walls shifted violently, the painted floods and fires moving as though alive. Figures screamed silently from the stone, their mouths opening and closing in eternal agony. The monks chanted, their voices low and resonant, but the curse had already awakened. The air grew colder, harsher. Whispers filled the chamber, echoing from every direction, speaking in 1,000 voices at once. Lara clutched Arjun's arm. "What's happening?" Arjun's eyes were wide, horrified. "He's broken the seal. The library isn't just a vault, it's a prison." Marcus staggered forward, his skin glowing with symbols that pulsed like veins of fire. He clutched the manuscript tightly, laughing and crying all at once. The whispers grew louder, merging into words. The cycle must repeat. The flood must cleanse. Knowledge must be buried. The ground cracked beneath their feet. From deep within the earth, a rumble rose, a sound like the sea itself rushing upward. The monk turned to Arjun, his voice urgent. "This place was never meant to be opened fully. Some truths were bound for eternity. If the curse is not contained, the world above will suffer once more." Arjun's mind raced. "How do we stop it?" The monk's eyes burned with sorrow. "It may already be too late." Above them, the mountain shuddered violently. Snow and ice cracked, avalanches thundered down its slopes. The storm had returned, unnatural, raging, as if the mountain itself had awakened in fury. And in the center of it all stood Marcus, glowing like a living torch, clutching the forbidden manuscript as if it were the only thing keeping him alive. The collapse of the library. The cavern roared like a living beast. The walls shuddered, great cracks splitting the murals as though history itself was breaking apart. Symbols etched in fire raced across the stone shelves, leaping from manuscript to manuscript, igniting knowledge that had slept untouched for millennia. Marcus stood at the heart of it, glowing with unnatural light. His voice was no longer his own, it echoed with countless tones, deep and shrill, human and inhuman all at once. The cycle must repeat. The flood must cleanse. The world above has forgotten. The monks encircled him, their chants rising, voices weaving into a low, thrumming resonance. Their prayer was not just words, it was an attempt to bind the curse back into silence. But Marcus resisted, his body radiating power like a burning star. Arjun shielded his eyes, shouting over the roar. He's becoming a vessel. That book, it's using him. The lead monk, his face etched with grief, nodded. Yes, the manuscript was never meant to be read. It is an anchor, a key. He has opened what must remain closed. Marcus's laughter turned into a shriek. His body cracked with light, veins glowing like molten rivers. His skin peeled and reformed, symbols carving themselves deeper with every heartbeat. He was becoming something no longer human. Lara clung to Arjun's arm. We have to stop him before the whole mountain collapses. The monk's chant broke for a moment. There is only one way. The library must be sealed forever. Knowledge and vessel alike must be buried. Arjun's stomach turned cold. But that means, yes, the monk said, his eyes steady. It means sacrifice. The ground split open beneath them, revealing a black chasm glowing with strange light, as if the earth itself bled fire. Manuscripts tumbled into the void, their pages burning mid-air, releasing shrieks that sounded like thousands of voices crying out. Marcus raised his arms, and the void widened. The murals peeled from the walls, their painted floods spilling out as if becoming real. Spectral waves of water and fire surged from the stone, battering the explorers. Do you see? Marcus cried, his voice thunderous. This is what they feared. This is what was kept from us. I will not be silenced. I will ascend. The monk's chant grew louder, desperate, their voices layering into thunder. The storm outside howled in answer, avalanches cascading down the mountain as if the world itself sought to bury the library. Arjun looked at Lara, her face pale but resolute. He looked back at Marcus, his friend once, now nothing more than a vessel for the curse. And he knew the monk was right. If we don't seal it, Arjun whispered, the curse will escape. The world above will burn. Lara's eyes glistened. Then do it, before it's too late. The lead monk handed Arjun a crystal rod, glowing faintly with pure light. Strike the heartstone, he said, pointing to the great crystal pillar in the cavern's center. It is the anchor of this place. Break it, and the library will collapse in on itself. The curse will be bound once more. But what about you? Arjun asked. The monk smiled faintly. We were never meant to leave. Our duty ends here. Arjun's chest tightened, but there was no time to argue. The cavern groaned, walls splintering, ice crashing from above. Marcus screamed, his body splitting with light, his form barely holding together. You cannot stop me, Marcus roared. Knowledge cannot be buried. But Arjun was already running. Dodging falling debris, he sprinted toward the heartstone, Lara close behind. Marcus turned, his glowing hand thrusting forward. A wave of fire and shadow surged toward them, but the monk's chants rose higher, forming a barrier of light that shattered the blast. Arjun reached the pillar. It pulsed with a steady heartbeat, as though alive. He raised the crystal rod, his hands trembling. Behind him, Marcus shrieked, his voice breaking into madness. If you destroy it, everything here, everything, will be lost. The wisdom of civilizations, the truth of our origins. You'll bury humanity in ignorance. Arjun hesitated. What if Marcus was right? What if the world could be changed for the better by this knowledge? Then Lara's voice cut through his doubt. Some truths aren't meant to be ours, Arjun. Not yet. Not like this. He closed his eyes. Forgive me. With all his strength, he slammed the rod into the heartstone. The crystal screamed. Light exploded outward, blinding, searing. The cavern convulsed, shelves and manuscripts collapsing into the widening chasm. Marcus howled, his body splitting apart as the light consumed him, dragging him into the void. The monks raised their hands, chanting louder, binding the curse as it wreathed and shrieked. One by one, they dissolved into light, sacrificing themselves to strengthen the seal. Arjun and Lara clung to each other as the world fell apart. The mountain roared, the roof caving in, torrents of snow and rock burying everything. And then, silence. When Arjun awoke, he was lying in the snow outside. The mountain behind him was a ruin, its slopes scarred by avalanches. The entrance to the library was gone, buried beneath tons of ice and stone. Lara stirred beside him, bruised but alive. She looked back at the mountain, tears freezing on her cheeks. It's gone, all of it. Arjun nodded, his heart heavy. Maybe that's for the best. They stood in silence, listening to the wind howl through the peaks. For a moment, Arjun thought he heard voices whispering in the storm, faint, distant, like echoes of knowledge that would never truly die. The library sleeps again, Lara murmured. Until someone else goes looking. Arjun shivered, pulling his coat tight. God help them if they do. They turned away, leaving the whispering mountain behind. Far above, the storm began to clear. But deep beneath the ice, buried in silence, the manuscripts pulsed faintly with light, waiting for the day when another hand would dare disturb them.